Welcome to more World of Warplanes content from the Noble Q, and in this video I'll look at the Tier 5 Premium German light fighter, the Heinkel He 100D-1. Hello there, and here on the tarmac outside my hangar is the Heinkel He 100D-1, designed as a competitor to the iconic Bf 109, and the exact reasons why the Luftwaffe never followed up with this aircraft have been lost to history. Nonetheless, it remained in prototype stage, 19 prototypes were built, and the 8th briefly held the world speed record in March 1939 before Messerschmitt took it back with a version of the Me 209. It was aerodynamically styled, it featured evaporative cooling, which had pressurized water in the wings. I think that would have made it vulnerable as a fighter, and I suspect this was used by the Germans for propaganda purposes and was never seriously intended as a frontline fighter. In the game, the World of Warplanes team have honoured the origins of the aircraft. They've made it fast, they've given it good altitude performance, it's pretty manoeuvrable, but because it was designed for speed and therefore had to be light, it has extremely weak armament. So we're going to look at the numbers now. If you don't want to look at a spreadsheet, use a link below the video to skip ahead to another part of it. Here we have the spreadsheet for all of the Tier 5 fighters. There are a lot of them. I'm going to scroll across. It goes on forever. You have 22 from which to choose. Now, one-on-one comparisons with all of these are obviously not practical. Before we get started, however, if you don't know how this spreadsheet works, there's a link to an instructional video in the description below. Have a look at that and then you'll understand what's going on. And we're going to look at the gun armament first, and I'm going to take you straight down to the worst in class figures. It is bad news. We have a rating of 5 and a cumulative DPS of 90. This is the worst in class by far. There is a tier 2 multi-role, the I-5 Schickass, that has a cumulative DPS of 120, 30 more than this tier 5 fighter. When I say this plane is lightly armed, I mean it's lightly armed. It has 3 7.92mm machine guns mounted in synchronized and also in the hub, each dealing 30 DPS, rate of fire 1200, a range which is pretty short, only 1444 feet. Auto aim angle is good though, it's 4.5 degrees. You can be off target by 4.5 degrees and you'll still hit your target as far as the game's concerned. And the dispersion angle, the way the bullets spread out from the muzzle of your gun, is also pretty good. It's 0.6. That's more like cannons than it is machine guns. Overheat time, it's long at 20 seconds. It has to be long because if you're firing at high hit point targets, you're going to need all of those 20 seconds to knock them down with just 90 DPS. And the shell velocity is pretty low at 876, although that's common for the machine guns in this comparison. It means you need to give a lot of lead if you're firing at a banking aircraft. But there's no getting away from it. The armament on this aircraft is a severe disappointment. Survivability is also a disappointment. It's only 3. It's not a robust aircraft. It was built for speed, not resilience. 170 hit points. Damage resistance is okay at 45, but you've got bad fire resistance, only 30, and this means that as this is a crew trainer and you probably won't be specifically dedicating a pilot to this aircraft, you're going to probably have to mount a fire extinguisher because you won't have either of fire resistance or firefighting skills on your pilot. From there on, it gets better. The airspeed is good. Second best in class rating, 45. Second best in class cruise speed of 248 miles an hour. Third best in class boost maximum speed of 398 miles an hour. The boost duration is also third best in class. It's okay at 8 seconds. You could have done with more, but 8 seconds is workable. And we have a maximum dive speed of 466 feet per second, which is nice. Maneuverability. Now, here's a surprise. If for an airframe that's built for speed, maneuverability is normally compromised, but on this aircraft it's actually pretty high at 76. Now, it's not Japanese levels of maneuverability, and I wouldn't recommend you get into turn fights with those, the AK-1s, or indeed the Spitfires. But it's plenty enough to deal with the other high-energy fighters. For instance, it outmaneuvers the Bf 109Es, the MiG-3, the P-40s. P-40s won't like this aircraft because it operates in the same sort of space, and they won't be able to shake it either with speed or maneuverability. So a rating of 76, turn time of 9.6 seconds for 360 degrees, an excellent roll rate of 140, might be able to throw off aircraft behind you by constantly rolling, half rolls away. A pretty decent optimum range of 186 miles an hour in which your characteristics do not degrade. That starts at 137, which is quite high actually, so you need to keep this aircraft fast, that's what that's telling me. and the maximum optimum speed of 323 miles an hour. Stall speed is a sort of normal 87. You're probably not going to be able to make things fly past you. Altitude performance is excellent, equal best in class, 49 rating, 5,906 maximum optimum altitude, service ceiling of about 12,500 feet. Climb rate, pretty good, 420 feet per second. We don't know how drag is implemented in the game. I'm pretty sure it is, but we have no numbers on it. What we can do is calculate power to weight ratios. These are okay, 0.34 kilowatts per kilogram, or if you prefer the American method of saying how many pounds would I have to remove to get a virtual horsepower back, that's 4.8. It's not best in class, but the aircraft is going to be pretty nimble. It's better than many of the aircraft in this comparison. We just drop down to the worst in class figures. Well, we've already talked about the guns. We can see a lot of worst in class dark red on the survivability. We talked about that as well. That we don't need to worry about the boost. Those are fairly limited range of figures, so 8 seconds is actually in the middle there. And here's that indication that you need to try and keep this aircraft fast because the minimum optimum speed is actually quite high. Where does that place this aircraft? Well, you might be tempted to build this as a dogfighter because of that manoeuvrability skill. And there is an argument for putting some manoeuvrability in this aircraft. I don't do that, but you might consider it. Because then you'll be able to, with ease, pick off other high-altitude aircraft, particularly the BF-109Es and the MiG-3s and the P-40s. You might want to do that. I go all out on speed because the airspeed is so good, so I will go for a full speed build, and that means I'm going to be flying at high altitude. I'm going to be trying not to get engaged in turn fights with certainly Spitfires, Yaks, Japanese turn fighters. I'll be using a different attack method on those. Be able to outmaneuver the bombers very easily, but bear in mind you're going to take all of that 20 seconds overheat time to knock down a bomber. I still recommend that you do that if you're going to go for a high energy build like mine. You'll be able to take out heavy fighters, and you'll also be able to take out other high altitude fighters, provided you get the drop on them. So, fly high, fly fast, dive on unsuspecting opponents, hit them a little bit with those guns, and then I would recommend that when you boost away, you actually disengage. Don't come back, because otherwise you're going to be doing 4 or 5 passes on the same aircraft, and unless the pilot is really asleep, you're going to find that he's going to start countering you by pointing up at you and using his superior DPS to knock you down. Think about how you can be effective in terms of capturing sectors. One thing I will note, one of the class-specific missions for this aircraft is capture points when you're attacking sectors, and because of that woeful DPS, you're actually going to struggle to get capture points, and that means getting something like a Hero of the Sky in this aircraft is going to be much more difficult than in something that's more comfortable to fly like a Spitfire. If you get a Hero of the Sky in this aircraft, you can consider that you've had a strong game. Okay, so I think it's a high energy fighter. Let's go and see how I built the aircraft. Here we are back with the HE100 D-1, and my aircraft is specialised. That means I have all of the equipment and consumable slots available. When you first get this aircraft, you will find the following is missing. 1 slot off the engine, that's a nuisance. And on the consumables, you're also missing a slot off the engine, which is also a nuisance. Let's see what I've done with the aircraft. So we'll pop it back into specialist configuration, and under the numbers, I said that I have built this for speed, and there you have the evidence. A full speed build, polished skin, boost mixture injection system, and an uprated engine, even though that increases the risk of fire, which is already high on this aircraft. If we look at the gun sight, I've decided to put the following bonus characteristics on it, and I would change these. Let's look at the full list. Low DPS guns, my advice is to try and increase the damage that you do to enemy aircraft by other means. That means increasing your chance of inflicting critical damage and probably fire. So it would be valid to pick off the 10% chance of causing a fire, which I already have, the 10% chance of inflicting critical damage, which I don't have, and the 5% chance of inflicting critical damage. The other alternative, in my opinion, is dropping that 5% chance of inflicting critical damage and putting on the 5% pilot's resistance to injuries, which I do have. However, if I wanted to, and this is only a Tier 5 aircraft, I would reassemble this in order to get at least both of the 10% chance of causing a fire and chance of inflicting critical damage characteristics on this plane. As far as the polished skin is concerned, again, not optimum build as far as I'm concerned. If I was reassembling this, I'd keep the 3% acceleration whilst diving, but then I would put on the 1% maximum speed with boost activated. That's at the bottom there. And then fourth from top is the 1% cruise speed. I've actually got some maneuverability here, which I don't really think I need in this particular configuration. On the boost mixture injection system, these are the characteristics I would have. I've got a total of 15% increase in the cooldown rate of the engine. That's important. I've also compensated for a little bit of the loss of boost by putting on this piece of equipment by selecting the 5% boost availability characteristic. I would not pick the others. They're all to do with speed, and I want to try and get this engine in a condition where it's performing at optimum as often as possible. Now, the drawback with mounting the uprated engine is that you increase your fire risk, and you've already got a bad fire risk on this aircraft. Nevertheless, I have taken that risk. And then on the bonus characteristics, I've gone for another 5% engine cooldown rate, want it back as quickly as possible. The 10% resistance to fire because I've increased my fire risk. Let's take some of that back, so that's a good choice. And then I've gone for 1% cruise speed, and I would probably stick with those bonus characteristics there. I don't recommend you go for a full maneuverability build on this. A full maneuverability build would probably be something like lightweight wing frame, drop the uprated engine in favour of a lightweight power unit, keep the boost mixture injection system. And here's the reason why. Most dogfights are taking place in the vicinity of other aircraft, including enemy aircraft. Your DPS is so low on this aircraft, it will take you a long time to knock down your target. That will give time for the enemies to latch onto you and shoot you down. And that's why I don't think you should build this as a dogfighter, and that's why I think you shouldn't put on a lot of maneuverability equipment. It would be a valid choice, I think, to take away the risk of extra fire, amongst other things, to drop the uprated engine, put on a lightweight power unit, and then you really will have an advantage over all of the other high energy fighters. However, that will have a significant impact on your cruise speed. As far as consumables are concerned, fire risk means that I've put on the fire extinguisher. Now, you could, if you dedicate a pilot to this aircraft, consider putting on pilot skills, fire resistance, and firefighter, and then going for the first aid dressing package here instead. However, it's a crew trainer. You're probably not going to dedicate a pilot to this aircraft, and therefore you are likely to find yourself in the situation where you don't have those skills, and therefore I think you have to resort to the fire extinguisher. Pneumatic control assist, in order to improve my maneuverability, perhaps fighting another HE100D-1. That said, if you find that you come across one of these aircraft which is clearly turning better than you, then you just speed away because they will be significantly slower, and you will use slash and burn tactics on them. That is, you get far away from them, make them disengage, come back, hit them a little bit and boost away again. Nevertheless, this could be helpful in some circumstances. Emergency control system, probably not necessary. You just want to use your speed to get away, and the loss of maneuverability won't affect that too much. If you really, really want to go for protection against fire, then you can put on this increased fire resistance. I have to say I'm quite attracted by that selection. I probably, when I fly this aircraft again, I'm going to try it with this. Engine cooling. Well, the boost is 8 seconds. You've lost a little bit by putting on the boost mixture injection system. You need to manage the boost in this aircraft. Try and make sure you've got it available before an engagement. Think very hard. In fact, I would suggest think twice about going into an engagement if you've got very little boost. But you can increase it by 10 seconds by mounting this engine cooling. I don't like having the engine knocked out on this aircraft, so I've put on the restart bottle. If you lose the engine on this aircraft, you're basically dead in the water. So that makes the alternative choice of the improved mixture control unattractive to me. If you're really going to maximise your speed, then that's your choice. And on the ammunition, I've been using universal ammunition, and I recommend that you use universal ammunition. If you are going to mount gold, and I will mount gold because I'm trying to draw down that ridiculous amount of gold that I've got at the top there, 72,000, then you would pick incendiary ammunition. Okay, let's talk about pilot skills. I've put in my BF-109 Zwilling pilot into this aircraft, and the reason I've done that is because he has Engine Guru 1 and Engine Guru 2 skills, as well as aerodynamics, and because I have a speed build, these are very good skills for me. Now, you're probably not going to dedicate a pilot to a Tier 5 premium aircraft, so this is the kind of thing that you should be looking for, in my opinion, with the speed build. If you've put on a piece of maneuverability equipment, then maybe you could look for a pilot that doesn't have the Engine Guru 2 skill, but does have the aerobatics expert skill. That's not for me. And if I had a suitable German pilot, I'd be also looking for the cruise flight skill over and above Marksman 1. But your choices are dictated by the pilots that you have in your hangar. And I would say that the core for the speed build that I've gone for has to be Aerodynamics Expert, Engine Guru 1, and Engine Guru 2. Anything else you get after that is a bonus. Right, let's go and see how this aircraft has been changed by the choices that I've made. Here we have another spreadsheet, and this one shows the effects on the base figures of the aircraft, which you've seen before if you watched the aircraft statistics section, as modified by the choices I've made for equipment, consumables, livery even, and so on and so on. And what we have here is only a little bit of change to the guns. I haven't really concentrated on the guns here. We've got an improvement in the accuracy of 19%. That narrows the dispersion. That's the way the bullets spread out from the muzzle of your gun a bit. It's going to help, but this plane is not about the guns. That's not where I'm concentrating. Because I've mounted the uprated engine on survivability, we have got an adverse effect on fire resistance. This is not welcome, but I'm going to tolerate it. Lost 5 points there. But we've got big effects on speed, and I like these effects. We've gone up from a rating of 45 to 53. It's probably a bit higher, as I'll explain in a moment. That's a 17.8% increase. We've got the cruise speed up to what the UI says is 295, but if you look in the UI, there's a bug if you've got Engine Guru 1 and Engine Guru 2, and it omits the effect of Engine Guru 1, which is 3% extra thrust. I've put that back in, and therefore I've calculated that the cruise speed has gone up to a whopping 304 miles an hour. We've also got a pretty positive effect as well on the boost maximum speed. That's gone from 398 to 427 miles an hour. So respectively 22 and 7% increases. These are very welcome. And incidentally, that speed will allow you to hunt down tier 6 XP54s, and that will really surprise them. Mind you, you will take forever and a day to knock them down with those guns, but they won't be able to get away from you. Because we've got the boost mixture injection system, we've got an adverse effect on boost duration. We've lost 10%. It's gone down to 7.2 seconds. Again, I can live with that. Maneuverability, there are some effects. Here we can see that the turn rate has gone up to 9.77 seconds. That's a 1.8% increase. Again, I can live with that given the way that I fly the aircraft. I'm not taking this into dogfights. In fact, I often decline to go into dogfights, and you should as well. If there's one thing that this aircraft will teach you to do, it is fly well and dictate the terms of the engagements that you choose to fight in. And again, the boost mixture injection system is responsible for a pretty healthy increase of 31 feet per second with on the climb rate. Other effects? I could have done more with the guns in terms of increasing the chance of criticals. That could be 15%. We've got a 10% chance of fire and 5% chance of criticals. Survivability, this is actually coming from the camouflage that I've got mounted. 20% in concealment is better. Tolerance to damage from AA guns is 10% better. And the tolerance to damage from rear gunners is 5% better. That's all from the effect of the livery. Airspeed, we've also got a 20% cooldown rate. The engine comes back much more quickly. That's important. 14.1 acceleration without boost is that's an improvement, and also 9.5% acceleration in dives. That's welcome because you will be using, or should be using, diving as a tactic against enemy aircraft. We've also got a little bit of loss on maneuverability in addition to the turn speed being reduced. We've also lost a little bit of yaw maneuverability, 1.8% there. But as you can see, that speed build has had a huge impact on the plane, and I think this puts it in the best possible place for fighting other aircraft. There is very little that is going to be able to get away from you, and then it doesn't matter that you're going to take 10, even 20 seconds to knock them down, because you'll be able to stick with them. Okay, I think it's time to go and see how this aircraft performs in battle. The map for the forthcoming battle is Scorching Sands. It's the invasion variant, and that is a 5-sector map with the sectors laid out in the 5 spots of a die configuration. We have a central garrison, which is tactically important, if not strategically, because that gives easy access to the other sectors. Near each spawn point on one axis we have make-weight garrisons, and then the strategically important sectors are the air bases, and these have three significant characteristics. They can be used as a spawn point, which if you want to try and attack the enemy's local garrison is useful in this particular map. You can get a different aircraft of the same tier if you're destroyed, or you can get full repairs, provided of course you own these air bases. Look at the order of battle. We can see that I'm top tier with my Heinkel. I have a specialised bow fighter, powerful aircraft, especially top tier for company, a B-17D bomber, a Hurricane 2D, mighty guns, and another bomber, a Junkers 88A, and then we have two tier 4s, another bomber, there's lots of bombers on my team, an AR2, and a specialised Bristol 146, and I like the Bristol 146, strong aircraft if it's well built. The enemy has one fewer tier 5 aircraft. They've got a pair of Hurricane 2s. Don't want to get in the front of those guns if you can avoid it, although they're relatively short range. A Junkers 88A bomber, a P-40 M105, which would be a great aircraft if only it had the altitude performance of the regular P-40, but it doesn't, and the rockets don't compensate for it. Then a specialised Blenheim F, an F-2A, and a Heinkel 11H2 bomber, which punches above its weight and is effectively a tier 5 in my opinion. Looks as if we may have a slight advantage here, but it's not clear-cut. As we go into battle, let me mention that this is a natively recorded replay file, not a World of Warplanes replay file. That means the reticle will be accurate. You'll see me looking around and indeed entering sniper mode. So, of course, we head towards the local garrison because it's right in front of the spawn, straight onto one of the heavy ADAs, and I tickle it a little bit, swing around behind it with the aim of finishing it off. Do so, my team captures the sector as I do that, and I mark out the nearer of the two air bases as the next most important sector to go to. Beginning to gain altitude. It's important to use altitude in this aircraft, always gain it when you can. Even at this early stage, I'm looking around to assess what's going on the map. It might help me decide what I'm going to do next after, with luck, we've captured this sector. I'll be looking to take out the heavy ADAs at this air base as well. Following in the C6, one of the heavy ADAs starts to shoot at him, so that's the one I choose to try and destroy. Have to put on the brakes. I'm carrying a lot of speed. He breaks off from the heavy, tries to shoot at another target. I destroy him, swing round, and I find the other ADA that's crossing me, so I'm able to shoot that almost immediately. Down that goes, and that flips the sector. Begin to head towards the maintenance shed, but then realise I don't need repairs, so I begin to climb again and head towards the central location. I'm keeping an eye on our local garrison because often by this stage of the battle, enemy ground attackers or bombers are heading into there, and this is the aircraft I would use to try and stop them from doing that. As it happens, they're nowhere near doing that. I see one of our bombers going for the Heinkel. Interesting decision. I decide to help him. So I put a few shots into the Heinkel, begin to get a bit close, I break off. And as I swing round, I spot there's a convenient ADA to shoot, another heavy, so I pursue that instead of the Heinkel, which has already got at least a couple of aircraft on it. And down he goes, the Heinkel. I've got some assistance for that, and now I knock down the ADA and we have completed the capture of this sector. I prefer altitude to low-level targets, so I go for the C6. Now I don't want him to clobber me with the 30mm, avoid that, and now I'm behind him. Basically his fate is sealed unless he gets assistance from somebody else. He cannot run away from me. I have the speed, probably more speed than he has, to hunt him down. Put a few shots into the ground attacker. That's not my favoured target, high hit point pool. I'll look for other things to do. This 2PA will do very nicely. Decide to go head on, slightly risky, but I get him on fire and he does break off, and then he blows up as well. Go and pepper the Bisha again. He dies. I'm not sure I got anything on that pass, but I had hit him previously, so I get some more assistance. The F2A doesn't respond to me shooting him, or indeed the ADA. I get the kill, and now that puts me directly underneath the Heinkel bomber. Ideal attacking position for me. I come up from underneath, shoot him down. Now it's a moment to look around and decide what we're going to do next. Also replenish the boost. Now I can see there's a bomber over our local garrison. I'm not entirely sure our ADAs will deal with him, so I decide to pursue him. And he's up in the orbit. And I decide to demonstrate that this aircraft has got good altitude performance. Yes, I'm in the yellow sectors, but I can still get to this bomber, I believe. So what I've done, I've harvested all my boost. The moment I've got 7 seconds, I've got 7.2 seconds actually, I then press my engine cooling consumable, and I use my boost to get higher and higher and pursue this aircraft. And I should think he's a little bit surprised that I'm up here. But now I'm up here, unless he's very lucky and does all sorts of criticals to me, I should have him. Guns are beginning to overheat, but the fire does for him, and that's another bomber down. Again, I look around. I've got the advantage of great altitude now, so I can pick what engagement I'm going to choose next. And that's really important in this aircraft. You need to be the one picking the engagements and not having them picked for you. Lots of choice here. Could have gone for the 2PA. I decided to settle on the C6 again, because I know that once I'm on him, he's not going to get away unless he has friendlies helping him. That's a full health target destroyed again. Look around to see what else I can do. The Heinkel is making a turn, so he's probably going to come into the sector. I might be able to get some shots into him. He's trying a low altitude bombing approach this time, but he's been shot down at higher altitude, or mid altitude twice, so he may as well. I don't get anything there as the Beaufighter finishes him off. So I head towards the enemy's local garrison. I can see 3 ground attackers there. This one's low health. That's ideal for me. I get to finish it off. Looking to see what's coming out of the back. There could be aircraft spawning there, despite the fact that the enemy has an airfield, and indeed they are. So I'll need to pay attention to those as I strafe this B-ship. Won't be able to finish it off. Get some damage, and then disengage and look for another target. Get onto the multi-roll, shoot him as he goes by, decide to turn with him, discover it's a Hurricane, which can turn pretty well. He's got pretty good guns. I'm going to lose a head-on battle with him, so I want to make sure I stay behind him, so I engage my pneumatic control assistance, and now I can easily outturn him. At that point he gives up, and all I have to do is finish him off. Now they have taken this sector, but we've got a healthy lead, so it doesn't matter. And then I see what I think is the C6 again. I very nearly fly straight into the aircraft that spawn, the ADAs, but I'm on the C6, so once again, unless he gets some help, this is a dead C6. Knocks out my engine, but down he goes. I can see a bot is attacking one of the human ground attackers here, so I decide to assist. It's pulling an interesting move, and I decide to go up rather than circle with him, just in case he's able to land a fortuitous shot with his cannon. Come back down, and finish him off. Swing round to see what else is in the sector. Decide to ignore the ground attacker directly below me, chase after the B-ship. I get shot down, so I decide to pick on another target, swing around for the ground attacker, and then notice that we've got a multi-roll flying across me, so I decide to fill that for the poles. And that's the F2A. Just lose contact with him, slow down, use a little bit of yaw, get back onto contact and shoot him down. Now we go for the other multi-roll. Decide to avoid a head-on with him as I'm beginning to run out of health. I've only got 3 hit points left, and that's the end of the game. 12,000 personal points, Akamatsu, McCampbell. This is a pretty good game. Let's have a look at the outcome of this battle, and as we see from the centre, it's a 4 chevron battle or a grade 2 fighter. That grossed 125,269,000 credits, of which about 42,000 came from the premium account bonus. If we look in the message box, we can see there are no expenses. I didn't lose the aircraft, so there's no repair costs, and as usual, I was using prepaid consumables. In combat experience, 1,713 base, 856 coming from premium account bonus, a small amount of other bonuses there, leading to a total of 2,654. 132 free experience, that's 89 base with 42 coming from the premium account. A token for a first medal of the day, that's the McCampbell, which is there. There's also an Akamatsu present. Go to the personal score tab, we can see that one of the class-specific missions was complete. That's destroying aircraft with defending, 8 there. We've got 14 aerial targets destroyed on the second of these, which is 4/5 complete, and we just missed out on the 5 chevron battle by failing to get this to 4/5 complete with 180 capture points. 12,015 personal points, 2 sectors captured. 14 aerial targets destroyed, as just mentioned. 3,560 damage done to aerial targets, and 11 critical hits. Okay, I have ramped up the guns to try and do extra critical damage and fire, of course. Didn't lose the aircraft as previously mentioned, capture points 500, and that was split 320 for defending sectors, 180 for attacking. On the team score tab, we can see that's enough for second place by personal points in my team, equal first by chevrons, and that would have been the case on the enemy team as well. Nice contribution from what is a fairly powerful aircraft, the Beaufighter here, decent from the Hurricane 2D as well. On the enemy team, really good effort by the F2A, down-tiered, not a particularly strong aircraft, well played. I'm happy we won this battle. That brings me to the end of the review section for the Heinkel He 100D-1, and this is a difficult aircraft, not recommended for newer players of the game, and that's because of the very weak guns. However, if you learn to do consistently well in this aircraft, you will have learned valuable lessons that will stand you in stead throughout the rest of the game. The principles of high energy fighting, keeping it high, keeping it fast, picking your engagements, or more importantly, declining engagements that you are likely to lose, and learning the difference between the ones that you can win and the ones that you probably won't win is an important skill in this game. Well, I hope you found that helpful, and that if you did, you'll come and see my future content. Stick around, there's a bonus battle coming up, it's unnarrated, but I'm going to leave you here. So this is the Noble Q, signing out.